in a different school, the headmaster came and said, there's an exam for a military school, which is called a Sainik school, so does anybody want to apply for that? And I was the only one who put my hand up. So I think I wanted to get out, mostly step out of the village, and that's how I went to write the exam. But I failed in that exam. Oh. Since the paper was in English and I had studied in Kannada, I was sort of, I was stumped and I flunked. So I came back crying to the headmaster. And then he later on I learned. He came out after 3-4 months and said, there's an exam again. They're giving it in Kannada this time. Yeah. But what had happened was then he told my father, my father met him, that he had written a postcard and put it in the local post office in Gorur, which is very remote. It's 25 kilometers from Hassan district headquarters. He put a postcard in that village addressed to the Defence Ministry, because the exams were held for Sainik school by Defence Ministry. So he said there's exam again, because he had written this postcard that this is insult to rural children. You're equating English with intelligence. English is another language. If you want people from rural areas, then give exam in their language, is what he wrote. He said you are giving exam in a small town like Hassan for people from the Hassan district. But how will you get them if you give it in language they don't understand? You know, so English is just another language. So it was extraordinary, you know.
But very enterprising. I mean, to even think of Defence Ministry and
then to put that postcard. So somebody saw it.
And somebody.
So that was my first lesson, that don't say take no for an answer. Question it.
Like, how do you make decisions? What is your, because you've had to make so many decisions in your life. I think that is very challenging for anybody. I wanted to know your decision making process.
Okay. Let's make a sort of distinction, subtle or distinction. One is on all these entrepreneurial ideas, something that comes to me to embark on as a venture. It could have been a small Udupi hotel venture or a motorcycle dealership or getting into farming. Those kind of decisions were taken, largely, I dreamt of something, some idea came to me, which was, of course, is largely informed by your background and your society, and those kind of influences are there, but the decisions were taken at the gut level. It was always at the gut level. I felt like getting into farming, I felt like getting into silkworm rearing or the helicopter company. They were largely, I saw something which was in my mind's eye. Like someone said, vision is the paradoxical statement. Vision is the art of seeing the invisible. And vision is seeing, but vision, which is what they call Durdrishti in Hindi or Sanskrit, that is seeing the invisible, and what is invisible is the future, right? So you see a kind of future that you imagine, which others can't see. You're seeing it. So since I'm seeing it so clearly, I do not consult people. I don't go to people and say, should I do it, right? Should I start a helicopter company? Should I do at that point in time in my life, some idea captures my imagination, I embark on it. But of course, once that decision is taken, of course I give it a thought, but there's a point beyond which analysis will not go. As in management circles, I think they normally say sudden death by instinct and paralysis by analysis. So there's a point beyond which analysis cannot go, at which time you fall back on your deep beliefs, some kind of a hunch, because you're seeing that which others are not seeing. But of course, once I embark on the venture, I try to get the best people, because like Newton said, I can see farther by standing on the shoulders of giants. So I try to get the best pilots, the best engineer, the best HR guy, the best, if it is a big venture, of course. And if it is a small venture, then at that level, I get the best guy to manage as a supervisor or as a maestri in whatever venture I have.
So this leads me to the second question, that one is that how do you find these people? Like, you were a helicopter pilot, and I know the defense, it is totally, you are in a different world. You are not even in, like, you live in your colonies, you work separately, you don't even know anything about, I mean, you are kept totally away from politics even. So how do you, when you came out, to find so many corporate people?
Yeah. I was I joined the Sainik School, Bijapur, when I was 11. I think I was in the 7th standard. And I was finishing 7th, so I joined the 8th standard then. I was about 11 or 12. And I was studying in my village school. My father was a teacher in the local school there. Initially in the same village in the high school, then later on in the neighboring village. And so I never went to school till my 5th standard. So of course there was no, in those days, of course nowadays even in the villages you have LKG and all that. So I never went to LKG, or of course people even go to the nursery. I went into LKG or UKG, or that was not there. Neither did I go to the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th standards. My first day in school was the 5th. And my father said, in a very philosophical way, and that something like on the lines of Tagore, or he was a big fan or devotee of Tagore, or Shivaram Karantin, who the Gnanapith Award winner. He said the school is in some sense in compounds. It's like a jail. Though it's important that you go to school, but I don't think it's that you need to join in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. You come straight to the 5th. Till then you play around. I'll teach you at home, and spend time in the river, with nature.
So he was quite visionary. In that way, he was quite visionary and different.
Father, yeah. Yes. So he took me to the river to teach me swimming. So most of my education that way was from my father. So he was a poor teacher, as the phrase goes. When I say poor teacher, because teachers are paid very. I remember in those days his salary must have been about 110 or something like that, as a local assistant teacher in high school. And so he was. We had a very small parcel of land, and so he used to, like many people who used to attend to the farm, the small patch of land that we had. And we were a large family of 8 children, so he was always, struggling for putting all the children to, because all the children he put them to hostel. So he was all the time, catching up with making ends meet in that sense. But he was not poor as in a laborer or even a small farmer. But he always, spoke to me of the Dalits. He would show me that how the Dalits in the village, they're on the paddy fields, they're when they're weeding, they're putting the greens in one bag, they're putting the crabs, they break the legs and put the crabs in the other bag. And he would point out such things to me to say that, see, even while there's the sowing season, there's the plowing, they sing, they come out with joy. Nobody sings on the lathe, nobody sings in a factory, they sing, so there's a nobility in that farm. And also to show that how there is joy in what they do, and the kids are also playing there in the mud, splashing water, but whereas you come and complain at home that the food is too hot or it's too cold to your mother, look at them, And so he was always pointing those kind of things. And so there was, in that sense, there was no envy. He would never show me the village sahukar. Sahukar is the rich man. In every village you have a sahukar of the village, the rich man of the village. He would never point out to them. He would point to these people to me, to show how blessed we are, that even though we are not so well off, we are blessed because you're comparing yourself to the people who are lower than you. But for the dreaming, he would read me even when I was in my 5th, 6th, 7th standard. He would read me Gandhi, he would read me Tagore or Bose, or even Socrates,
wow,
Napoleon. Those kind of things he would read to me.
So he was a very learned man. He was aware of these.
Yeah, he was very learned. He was very well read in English literature and Kannada literature. And
as a poor farmer.
Who? My father?
Your father, as a poor farmer.
And he was a teacher. But he was very much much beyond his books. I remember when he was not a true believer in that sense of a personal God. But more in a larger pantheistic way. So the last days when he passed away, we found that Bhagavad Gita, which he had translated, because maybe some 500 people must have translated Bhagavad Gita and given their own interpretation, from Shankara to others. So he had also written on one side the Sanskrit shloka, then he has written the translation in English, and he had read all the other translations.
And this is published?
Yeah, it's not published.
Oh, okay.
So what I meant was that he would always, like example, quote to me, "Whom dost thou worship in the dark corner of the room?" He's not there in the temple in front of you. He's there with the
so tell us some of your favorite quotes which has led you through life.
I mean, things like Tagore, for example, that is a very famous, where the mind is without fear. So he would come with my mother to the temple, but he would not pray, right? So in that sense, just like Tagore was such an extraordinary, if you read his books, the Sadhana, for example, he talks about the Indian philosophy there. But he was always derisive of all these superstitions and this narrow-mindedness of a personal God who rewards you and things like that. So I grew up in that environment. So in my school, I remember my father was away from, because he was in a different school. The headmaster came and said, there's an exam for a military school, which is called a Sainik school. So does anybody want to apply for that? So we were all going barefoot to the school. We were on the floor, sitting on the floor. And it was the only school for about 15-20 other villages from the surrounding areas. And I was the only one who put my hand up. It's more in that sense of, venturing out beyond, so there's a very famous, I quote this often, of one Kannada poet called P.T. Narasimhachar, which says, Gudi aache, Gedada aache, Gadi aache, Hogoda Banniro, Hosanaadige. That means beyond the temple, beyond the woods, beyond the borders, let's go and seek new lands yonder. Let's step out to seek new horizons. André Gide, the French a novelist and philosopher tells in a different way. He says, if you want to discover new lands, you have to leave the shore for a long time, right? And security is mortal's chief enemy. The world has never been insecure. The last more than 1,000 years from the Mahabharata times, from the times of Alexander in BC, throughout history, it's been full of wars and famines and earthquakes. So things unsettle life. But there is no security, but there is opportunity all the time, And so if someone wants security, you buy an island. If you want to discover new things, then you buy a boat.
Yeah.
And there is a very famous story, alleged story, that when Columbus, who was an adventurer, seafarer, was standing at the edge of Spain and Portugal and looking onto the Atlantic Ocean. It was before they discovered the earth was round. It was when it was known to be flat. But he said, if I'm standing on the land here and if there's water in front of me, then there must be land on the other side. Otherwise, how does the water balance? Water is there, land is this side. So the water can't stand that side unless there is land on the other side. So that was his logic or hunch. And he said, India must be on the other side, because in those days already India was, known there with the spices and things like that. So he thought India must be there. So he went and asked the Italian kings for funding to fund his exploration, to take a few people, and he never got it from the Italians because they never believed him. But it was the Spanish kings who gave him the money. So they were the first venture capitalists. So they gave the money, and with that he set out and he started discovering India. He discovered, of course, called it Indies and West Indies,
America.
Yeah. So, but it was an undecked boat. So it is always your imagination, your adventure, your which is and your energy and courage. I think that was true then. It is true yesterday, true today, and true tomorrow.
Yeah.
That is more important than capital. And capital will come to you. Capital will seek you, like the river seeks the sea. If you have those things, if you have the adventurous spirit, if you have the imagination, as someone said, imagination rules the world.
Yeah.
Literally. Because anything and everything that has been done by anybody, whether it is a scientist or a conqueror, it is because of imagination. They imagine the new lands to conquer, whether it was from Babur who came and invaded India then, or Alexander, or the Chola kings who went to Thailand and others. So in that sense, my childhood was shaped both by stories and legends, and my father played a big part. So I put up my hand and to write this exam, and I remember still, I said it before on many platforms. So I did not know what military was. So I asked my father, what is military? Even today, if you go deep into the interiors of Karnataka, in these small shanties, weekly flea markets, you have, it is written there, or in a small village, military hotel, not military, military hotel.
Yeah.
And I asked him what is it. He said military hotel means people who join the army, the military. They don't know army there. They're the people who join military. They eat non-vegetarian. So, like you have Brahmins, Udupi hotel.
Right.
Udupi Brahmin means they're vegetarian.
Yeah.
You don't say vegetarian. You say Udupi Brahmin hotel, it means vegetarian. Veerashaiva is Lingayat. Veerashaiva hotel is that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
The
this.
vegetarians, right? So if you say Veerashaiva, they know that they'll be only very strictly vegetarian, as strict as the Brahmins. And then you have the military hotels. And if the military hotel, that means they give
Non-veg.
non-veg.
Okay.
And of course, if it's a hotel which is a Dalit, Dalits eat beef, age old. Yeah. So I wanted to be strong. He said, my father said, they give them non-vegetarian to make them strong. That's the reason these people say military hotel, because we were serving non-vegetarian. So I was a small, puny boy. So I think I wanted to get out, mostly step out of the village, and that's how I went to write the exam. But I failed in that exam. Because I was studying in Canada, and the paper was the paper they were studying. The paper was one was in mathematics or arithmetic, they used to call it then. Another was in social studies and science. These are the three basic science for the science for at that kids level. Since the paper was in English and I had studied in Canada, I was sort of I was stumped and I flunked. So I came back crying to the headmaster, and then he later on I learned. He came out after 3-4 months and said, "There's an exam again. They're giving it in Canada this time."
Yeah.
But what had happened was, then he told my father, when my father met him, that he had written a postcard and put it in the local post office in Gorur, which is very remote. It's 25 kilometers from Hassan district headquarters. He put a postcard in that village addressed to the defense ministry, because the exams were held for Sainik school by defense ministry. It was not the state government. And because Karnataka was already late. This was 1963. Karnataka was already late. All places like Punjab and Rajasthan had Sainik schools much earlier. Even Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra. Karnataka, very late entrant to get a Sainik school. And the state government has to give lands, but central government gives all the major fundings. This is to encourage people from all the states to join the army, but it doesn't guarantee army entrance or Air Force entrance. And this one. It prepares you in a public school which has got all the facilities like horse riding and weapons training, and even as a small this one. Of course, it has all the academics, but it emphasizes and prepares you for the UPSC exam, which is the same exam that UPSC holds for IAS and so on. So UPSC holds their exam for National Defence Academy, which is all India exam. It's quite a tough competitive exam. So it prepares you for that. So he said there's exam again, because he had written this postcard that this is insult to rural children. You're equating English with intelligence. English is another language. If you want people from rural areas, then give an exam in their language, is what he wrote. He said, you are giving exam in a small town like Hassan for people from the Hassan district. But how will you get them if you give it in language they don't understand? So English is just another language. So extraordinary,
But very enterprising. I mean, to even think of defense ministry
and then to put that postcard. So somebody saw it.
Yeah. And somebody.
So that was my first lesson, that don't say take no for an answer. Question it. Like I think Bertrand Russell said, it's always good to hang a question on things you are long taken for granted. You have to question things. Or I think Feynman said very famously, the Nobel laureate in physics, he said, I'm more comfortable with with answers. I'm more comfortable with questions that cannot be answered. More comfortable with questions that cannot be answered, rather than answers which can't be questioned. Because today you're all the time given. If there is somebody who is a dictator as a country, or authoritarian ruler, or even in a company, somebody very dogmatic, or very he doesn't encourage questions. He gives answers which they don't like being questioned, right? So in that sense, it was a great also, a pointer to me that you don't take things for granted, question it. And that's how I joined Sani School, and then after,
And a postcard could change policy almost.
A postcard change policy, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I still remember then I passed the exam second time, then I went to Hassan District Headquarters, where in the DC's office the interview was held. There were only 3 people for the interview. I was one of them.
Yeah.
And the 2 others were from Coorg. And the boy from Coorg got selected and I got selected. So I was the first boy from the village
Wow.
to join the army. So in the sense that I became kind of a celebrity in the village there, though I was hardly 11, 12. And that's how my life took a different turn. And then in the Science School, then I wrote an exam in my 10th standard, after I finished my 10th standard. Now, to join, because NDA is 3 years, but after 10th, sort of the UPSC exam, from across India, they select some 200 people, something like IAS, IPS. So I joined that because there are now there are more than 30 science schools. Then there were about 16 science schools, but everybody applies. That means people from across India who are past 10th standard apply for this exam. So, and about 200 are selected, or a little less than that. So about 100 odd go to Army, about 25, 30 go for Air Force. But it's a combined training academy, National Defense Academy. It's a fabulous campus. It's 7,000-acre campus, fully, integrated in training and everything. It also gives you great bonding and understanding between the 3 services, because all the wars today are fought between the 3 services collaboration.
Which is what we missed in the Kargil war, which is why CDS came into being for more integration.
Because sometimes there is rivalry. Even today there is, across the world, there is rivalry between the Army and the Air Force and the Navy. The Navy says, look, we would like to do our own training, but the Air Force says, why should Army have aviation when we ourselves are there? But Army then finally succeeded in having its own Army aviation.
And why does Army need, from your perspective, why does it?
Yeah, because even in the USA, Army has its own
aviation
division, which has got attack helicopters, and the Air Force has its own. Air Force is much more focused on that. So even the Navy has its own air wing. But there is always this inter-services rivalry. But I think today all the 3 service chiefs, they have been together in the NDA, so there is that rivalry, though it exists in a settled manner. Like we said, for example, Air Force has its own ab initio. Ab initio is the initial training. Army has its own ab initio for the aviation side. They could have one, like in UK. There is one training facility. Everybody gets trained for the initial getting the wings. After that, they go to Army, they go to Air Force, they go to Navy. In India, it's still not happened. Because they want to.
What do you think of the concept of conscription?
I think
don't you think everybody, it will do good for the nation?
I think it would have been. I think it would have been good. And